You probably think that you need to be some sort of technical genius or understand all these trading ways of getting rich and this crazy stuff. You don't need to be a technical genius to get rich with Bitcoin. You just need to understand a few core basic concepts. And once you understand those, you'll have them forever. It's not a case of you need to understand every single cryptocurrency. That is actually where I went wrong. I thought that I needed to understand every cryptocurrency that was in the entire industry, like they were all important. I thought that I needed to be studying all these different altcoins, and if I got the right one and I found the right one, cryptocurrency would change for me because I could 100x some coin overnight or something. That's not what you need to do. You just need to understand a few basic things about Bitcoin. It's not that difficult. I can't stress that enough, because once I figured out that all I had to do was understand Bitcoin to like some sort of a basic level, that is all I needed. And how I did that was just getting the information. I'm going to give you the information in these videos. This is what this YouTube channel is all about. If this is your first time seeing the videos, this is what I'm going to show you. Just a few basic core concepts. And I remember the exact time when I realized that it was just that 4-year cycle. Once I got that, that was it. Because I thought it's hardly this easy, it's hardly this straightforward or simple, but it actually is. It is absolutely that easy. It is absolutely that straightforward. It is just understand the main concepts, and that's all you need to do. I thought researching altcoins was going to get me ahead of the game. If I spent 10 extra hours researching altcoins than the next person, that's what would get me to the next stage or whatever. That's not what you should do. And that's not what I needed to do. And luckily enough, I figured that out. Luckily enough, I figured out that if I just read a couple of books on Bitcoin, if I figured it out, you don't even need to go and read those books. I'll give you the information. The 4-year cycle is the most important thing you need to understand. It goes up for 3 years and the price falls for 1 year. How complicated is that? It's pretty straightforward. I remember when it clicked for me that it goes up for 3 years and then it falls for a year. And you can actually predict it. You can actually see when this cycle is happening. Because it's not like you have to know at the beginning of the 4 years when it all happens. When's this exactly going to happen? On what day is this going to happen? You just need to know roughly. And then as it's happening, you can monitor it. As it's happening, you can just continue to check back into the chart. Like TradingView chart is there. That's all you need to have. You don't need to have a million different charts. I have loads of charts on the wall. They're all extras because they show you things that the Bitcoin price chart won't show you. And if you have all these extra charts, you can see things that most people won't see. And that can help you a lot to predict the price, the Bitcoin price. But the 4-year cycle is the main thing. To go back to the main idea here, if I can just teach you this 4-year cycle, that's it. You will be rich forever. Because it happens over and over again, and it goes up for 3 years and down for 1 year. It goes up for 3 years, and that's how it works. Just keep going back to that main concept, and then like look into the other things of there's 100 million satoshis in a Bitcoin. There is the mempool website that you can look at. The mempool website will show you everything that goes on in the background of Bitcoin, and it's so easy to follow. All you need to see is what's happening with the price at the moment, and then understand your 4-year cycle, and you'll be able to go forward from there. There's only a couple of things that you need to understand. The first thing that I would look at is, how does the 4-year cycle work? That's it. That's it. I can teach you 100 million other things, but that is the core thing that you need to understand. I wouldn't say really that it's all there is to learn, but that is the main thing that most people are not seeing. Why are people day trading Bitcoin? You don't need to day trade Bitcoin because you have the cycle. I've seen it so many times where people just lose money over the long-term trading, because if you try and trade Bitcoin what's going to happen is you're going to predict it once or twice, and that's going to trick you into thinking that you have uh, some knowledge that you can uh, continue to do that over and over again. But if you're trying to trade Bitcoin, you're just trying to trade sentiment, and sentiment cannot be predicted over long term. Can you predict what a famous person is or is not going to say tomorrow or next week? You can't. You can only guess. And if you're guessing, like you're just at a casino, and what's the point of going into financial markets trying to make money if you are just going to the casino? You might as well just do that, because you're trying to make money here and you're not trying to gamble. This is not gambling. Getting rich with Bitcoin is about just understanding the 4-year cycle. I've said that probably enough times in this video for you to realize that it's the most important thing you need to learn. I didn't realize that there was a cycle. I didn't realize that there was a 4-year cycle when I was starting out in Bitcoin. There is so many things. There are so many things with Bitcoin that you can study, but if you just research that, that's going to get you to a place where you can continue to make money over and over again. It's called a bull and bear market. The bull market is when the price is going up. The bear market is when the price is going down. You'll often hear people talking about the bull market in stocks and the S&P 500 and all of these things. But it's very clear with Bitcoin. You'll hear people talking about the meme coin season. Don't worry about it. They go up like crazy for a couple of weeks and a couple of days even sometimes, and then they just fall in a few hours. And if you don't know that they're going to fall, you're going to lose all your money. I've seen it happen so many times. You just can't predict them. And if you have money in them, it might seem crazy when the price is going up, but if you can't predict when the price is going to fall, what's the point of having your money in it? Because it could be going to, you think, oh, it might go to $3 if it's some random meme coin, and then it goes to $2.98 and it falls. Like, you can't predict it. The next thing that I would have understood, I would have looked to understand, is how to not get caught up with noise in Bitcoin. Noise is going to be the thing that's going to derail your whole system if you are not tuned into how to figure out when people are just panicking for no reason. Most of the time people are panicking for no reason in Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin is so volatile, it will go up and down. It will go up like crazy. It might go down the next day. Because it's so volatile, it gives people so much information coming at them that is false. And they go ahead and panic, and then they post on social media. And if they're posting on social media, you might see it, and then everyone just joins in on the fact that they've posted, and some famous person might post and they might talk about how Bitcoin is going to crash tomorrow and it's going to crash next week, and you better sell all your Bitcoin. And then everyone thinks, oh, this person must know what they're talking about. If you have learned your 4-year cycle and you've said, right, this is going to, roughly speaking, its price is going to go upwards for 3 years, fall for 1 year, why would you need to be listening to someone talking about the Bitcoin price might crash next week? And even if it does fall next week, it'll be back up again because of the cycle. Supply and demand is way more important than any of this sentiment stuff. Supply and demand is what is so linked to the Bitcoin halving. What the Bitcoin halving is where the amount of Bitcoin that's released to the market on a daily basis is cut in half at a specific point. Some people think, oh no, you're wrong when you're talking about that, because that's not what happens. What I'm saying is the supply that is released to the market on a daily basis, like a certain amount of Bitcoin gets released to the market every day, and at a certain point that gets cut in half. That's what drives the supply and demand of Bitcoin. That is what is going to get you rich. If you just understood the same amount of demand is going to be there for Bitcoin over the long term. That is so important for you to understand. Over the long term, Bitcoin is not going away. It's like saying that technology is going to fade away. You would say I'm crazy if I was to say that. Bitcoin is technology. It's the technology of money. Money, this paper money that we use, it has so many problems. So you just need to realize there is a couple of things that you need to understand about Bitcoin, like the 4-year cycle, how it rises in price for 3 years and then it falls in price for 1 year. And it's so predictable. And when I say it falls in price, I can even tell you that it's usually 13 months. If I can tell you that it's usually 13 months, how more specific can it be? Once you know that it's going to do that, you just move around your funds. I consider it like digital energy. And because it's just like trying to see where is the energy best placed at what time. And it's as simple as that. That might sound complicated, but once you understand what I'm talking about, you'll see that it makes sense. Put your energy where it should be at the right time. Like, have own Bitcoin at this time, take some profits at that time. And it is such a straightforward process. I don't know how much more simple I can make it. You can look at the Bitcoin network as well if you want. How does the Bitcoin network work? Obviously, you need to understand how a transaction works. I can make an entire video on that maybe, but a transaction is someone just sending Bitcoin from one person to another. That's all it is. They can use any kind of wallet. They could be sending it from an exchange. They could be sending it from any kind of wallet that they might own. There's lots of different wallets they could have. You could have a wallet on your phone. Once you pay the transaction fee for a Bitcoin transaction, it will be put through. And as long as you pay a fee that's high enough, if you're sending it from the exchange, like Coinbase or any of those exchanges that you can download from the Google Play Store or any of those, not sponsored by Coinbase, by the way. If you are if you are sending a Bitcoin transaction from any of those applications, the exchange will decide the transaction fee. So once you put the transaction through, it will be sent. Some other types of wallets that are a little bit more manually controlled, you can set the transaction fee. And the reason that's important is because you can decide if you want the transaction to go through a little bit faster or slower. So obviously, why would you want the transaction to be slower? So you just look up on the mempool website. If you're sending it from a wallet that has a manual control of the transaction fee, you can go onto the mempool website, see what the transaction fee currently is, and you just set it as that. Why the transaction fees are what they are is because if the Bitcoin network is super busy, the transaction fee will be a little bit higher. And if it's quiet, the transaction fee will be low. So it's better to put through transactions when the network is quiet. If you are using a wallet that has manual control of transaction fee, but look, those things are for another day, and I will talk about those in other videos. But like, you need to start figuring out Bitcoin, because this money that we're using at the moment, it is so broken. I could talk for the next 3 weeks nonstop about how the current financial system is so broken. It does not work. It has so many problems. Inflation is just absolutely ridiculous. They tell us that inflation, oh yeah, we have a goal of inflation of 2%. 2% inflation is ridiculous to say that that's anywhere close to what it is. Inflation is more like 20%. There is a problem with the current money that we use. What is the answer? The answer is Bitcoin. If you study it and figure it out, you will get rich. Because why? If you wonder why, the main thing I would say is it's the best form of money. It has all the properties you need for perfect money. And how do I know that? It's because I read this book here called The Bitcoin Standard. Some people think this is a book about Bitcoin, but what it actually is a book about the history of money. And if you research the history of money, it'll tell you that what properties you need for perfect money. Is it like you need this or this or this? Once you break it down and you see, okay, money needs to be able to be sent from one person to another. It needs to be a store of value, so you can't use apples because they're going to go off and disintegrate. So it needs to be something that you can send to one another, something that will hold value. There's a couple of other things. They're all in this book, and you can get it if you want it. Or I will make a video and I will tell you all about the things that you need to know about why the history of money is probably one of the most important factors as to why someone would be involved in Bitcoin. It is definitely one of the main reasons why I'm involved in Bitcoin, because the history of money tells us that the current financial system is broken. And why are we involved in it if it's broken? Because I guess we're customers of the people who are benefiting from the whole system, the people at the top of the banks and the people at the top of all these central banks or governments, or however way you want to look at it. Like in America, the central banks and the government are very much linked in a lot of ways. If you've ever watched the film The Inside Job, it's a documentary that talks about the financial crisis in 2008. It tells you that some guy they interviewed, he said that the government's plan A, plan B, and plan C were all just print money. We need a currency that does not inflate the same way our fiat currency does. And Bitcoin is the answer, because we know what the rate of inflation is going to be over the long term with Bitcoin. And that is going to solve the problem over the long term for people, because if you just understand the core concepts of Bitcoin, that's all you need to know. You can continue to study Bitcoin over the long term and to grow your knowledge of it. Obviously, that is going to help you, because the better your knowledge of Bitcoin, the better you are going to be able to utilize it